Welcome into Unbreakable, a mental health podcast with Jay Glazer. And I got a really special guest today, good friend of mine, trains with us at Unbreakable Performance Center. But also, man, he is a stud of an actor, spans. I'm going to explain who he is when I get to him. Before that, though, if you're like many people, you may be surprised to learn that 1 in 5 adults in this country experienced mental illness last year. I am definitely one of those 5. Yet far too many fail to receive the support they need. Carolyn Behavioral Health is doing something about it. They understand that behavioral health is a key part of whole health, delivering compassionate care that treats physical, mental, emotional, and social needs in tandem. Carolyn Behavioral Health, raising the quality of life through empathy and action. With that, I want to bring in, I said, a very close friend of mine, Stephen Amell, who you guys may know from Arrow, you may know from Heels, you may know from a ton of things. He's had a ton of credits, but Arrow for a long, long time. Heels now is coming up upon its 2nd season, which is pretty wild, man. I went to WrestleMania 1 growing up at Madison Square Garden. Muhammad Ali was the referee. It was Mr. T and Hulk Hogan against Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff, and Jimmy Superfly Snuka was in the good guys corner, and Cowboy Bob Orton was in the other corner, and man, it was like everything for me as a 12-year-old.
Wow.
How about that?
So I got into wrestling shortly thereafter, and then sort of like 88, 89, because that was 85. And then I went back and I bought the VHS tapes and went into WrestleMania 1, 2, 3, and 4, I think, not knowing what happened. And of course, you could get away with that back in the day because you're not going on the internet and finding out the results. So, yeah, wow. The Garden. I've never been to Madison Square Garden.
Are you serious?
For a sporting event. No, the premiere of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows was in the theater where they used to have the NBA draft for all those years.
Right.
I've never seen a Rangers game, a Knicks game. It's kind of embarrassing at this point.
It actually is embarrassing that you haven't gone. I'll tell you something wild.
I know.
In the 90s, I used to host a show from there with Kurt Menefee, who's now obviously the host of Fox NFL Sunday, called Unnecessary Roughness. We were right there when you walk into going into, I think Beefsteak Charlie's was next to it, and you'd go into the garden to go watch an event. So we're right there in the cavern, and we could not get a guest to show up. They would get high school teams to come. And the crazier part is we had a hard time getting guests to come in. So almost every week, Strahan would come in and be our guest and just to bail our asses out of this, not having somebody. And it was, but listen, that's how you have to cut your teeth, right? And performing in front of 0 people. So, your big break was Arrow. Would you say that was your biggest?
Yeah, sure.
Right.
I think in the way that you construct an acting career from the outside looking in, if you're not in the business, this is the first role that's going to, or the first casting, I suppose, that's going to show up in the sheets, like Variety or The Reporter or Deadline. In reality, was the 10th job that I had gotten over a period of about 2 years, from February 1st, not actually 2 years, from February 1st, 2010, when I moved to LA, until February 1st, 2012, when I got cast. I got 10 different American jobs, NCIS LA, NCIS, CSI Miami, Vampire Diaries. There was a Lifetime moving in there. It was an HBO series, New Girl, Private Practice. But Arrow was the first one where.
But none as leads, right? Arrow was the first lead.
Arrow was the first lead. It was not the first series regular, but you got to think of it like, you're hosting a show with Kurt, and in order for him to eventually become the host of Fox NFL Sunday, they have to see a track record, and they got to trust you that you can show up, that you can be professional, that you can do stuff on set. But yeah, Arrow was the big one for sure.
Before I got my big break, which was 50 grand. How many years was it just rejection before you broke through?
Yeah,
Because
I can
this
kind
is a
of,
mental health podcast, but
yeah.
being able to deal with mental health during these issues leads us all to mental wealth.
Well, I think that the mental health is that I had a really sort of what I thought at the time was a real catastrophic moment in my life, which was, I got into acting, in my early 20s when I was in Canada, but in Toronto. But the real, I mean, the reason that I did it, the reason that I was pursuing it was for fame and fortune. That was it. I hadn't really thought about the fact that it was what made me happy. But, I was a kid. I was in my 20s, but I was stupid.
It's good.
And I was vain. And I was approaching it for all the wrong angles. But then I was in a long-term relationship, and I kind of set on hard times with acting because I wasn't going after it for the right reasons. So one good job wouldn't lead to a bigger job. It was like I would get, a big part in a movie. Like I got a big part in a Richard Attenborough film, but then I couldn't get a bit role in like a local Canadian soap. And then the relationship that I was in, I kind of fell on hard times in 07, 08. And she just fell out of love with me and left. And that crushed me. And I mean, I thought, I don't know, I think to this day, it might have been kind of my one of my lowest points, if not my lowest point. And it was that incident that made me take stock of like what was important in my life. And one of the things that came up for me was acting. And so the previous 7-8 years, I had a movie where I think I made like $125,000 or something like that. But then I blew it because I didn't know what I was doing with it. And I didn't have people in my life that were helping me make smart financial decisions because I was never really taught that by anyone. And it was when I started to get into acting and pursuing it because it made me feel good mentally, that inevitably the money followed.
Right.
But I also too, when I came out to LA, I got an apartment right in Hollywood at Franklin and Cherokee, right off Hollywood Boulevard. Right by Musso and Frank's, which if you've seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, you see Pitt and DiCaprio go there at the beginning of the movie to meet Pacino. And the apartment was like $1,300 a month, and I didn't need anything. Once I didn't need anything, and I stopped caring about material things, then inevitably you start to gather them.
What became, you said it used to be fame and fortune were the important parts for you to acting.
Yeah.
What became the important parts for you for acting?
Getting better at it in the early going, using it as an exercise to really remove ego and take ego and vanity and the superficial aspects of acting. Like, do I look good enough? Is my jawline the way that I want it to be? Getting rid of those things, focusing on improving. And then that has transitioned since I got Arrow over the past 10, 11 years to realizing that the more that I do in my career, the bigger platform I'm able to have. And once I'm able to have a bigger platform, that I can then go out and I can influence people in a positive way, be it a young kid who, watches Arrow for the first time and sees stuff like Oliver's character, my character in Arrow. One of the things we really get into in the first season is that he's suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder from this 5-year period where he was marooned on this island, and he went from this young bratty kid to the Green Arrow that we meet in the pilot. And I get people that come up to me all the time that say, I was deployed, or I broke my leg and I was on bed rest, or something happened and I found Arrow. And I thought to myself, if Oliver can get through what he got through those 5 years on the island, then I can deal with what I'm dealing with right now. And that sounds, if you haven't experienced something like that, that can sound hokey. It's like, okay, it's a TV show. But the person that's saying it to you is dead serious.
Right.
they're not going to share something like that, and they're not going to open themselves up and allow themselves to be vulnerable and tell you something like that if they don't really fucking mean it.
Right.
And so
you can make a difference. Yeah. Use a lot of people can make a difference. Yeah.
You know, 100%. And it's like, you know, I happen upon, I've done a lot of work with a charity called Fuck Cancer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming that you can swear on this podcast, by the way.
Who the fuck you think you're talking to?
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
Are you shitting me?
So I found this charity called Fuck Cancer.
Sure.
Back in April of 2012, my mom and I took a photo because she was going through breast cancer for the second time, and she's bald and she's going through chemo. And, you know, I shaved my head and we took a photo and we give the middle finger to the camera. And then someone reaches out to me and says, you know, there's a charity called Fuck Cancer. And it's because I'm on something like Arrow, and I have a platform, and I have I have social media accounts that are verified and, you know, have a substantial number of followers, that when I get behind something, other people get behind it. Right. And that's really special. That's really special.
I know you're a huge football fan because you'll text me constantly during the Rams games, right?
Yeah.
And look, I've got, you know, I've gotten a fight. I was the first host of an MMA show in America. So I've had the fight fans forever and the football fans forever as well. How are comic book fans different than, let's say, your football fans?
That's a good question. Well, you think about it, like, if you're a fan of the Carolina Panthers right now, you're all excited for Bryce Young, okay? But you're not walking up to Bryce Young and going, "You better nail it."
Right.
Better nail it, because once he does, it's so that, you know, comic book fans, they're assuming that he's going to succeed until he doesn't. Right. And hopefully he does. It seems like by all accounts, seems like a really good player and a really, really solid individual. But when I got Arrow, first of all, fans were mad that it wasn't Justin Hartley who played the character on Smallville, which ended in 2010. You know, just like
you trained with at Unbreakable with us together. Yeah.
You know, I don't think, it has been a couple of years, but 100%. I think that was actually, I think Unbreakable might have been the first place that I ever met Welling too, Tom Welling.
Yeah, from us.
Yeah, who's a lovely guy. So the first thing is they're pissed that it's not him. And then, you know, we shoot the pilot and the trailer comes out and people like the trailer and they're excited about the trailer. But I went to Comic-Con in San Diego in 2012, and my basic thing that I got from comic book fans was, okay, Green Arrow doesn't belong to you. Green Arrow belongs to me. I've been a fan of Green Arrow for 30 years. I'm very excited for the show. Don't mess it up.
Wow.
Is what they said to me, not in so many words. And
so it is a similar thing, telling, you know, CJ Stroud, don't fuck this up. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, but it's like, but once you get in there, they're with you forever.
Okay.
Forever. Now, granted, if I kept playing Arrow for 30 years and I'm starting to creak up and down the Arrow cave because I can't walk properly anymore because I need hip replacements, then maybe they turn on me then. But no, there is a similarity. They're fiercely protective of the thing that they like. Like, people say to me all the time, well, you're DC, you'd never do Marvel, right? It's like, well, I don't know. I didn't set out to play a DC character. That's just sort of how it happened. If someone approached me to do something in the Marvel universe, I'd look at it the same way if someone from the DC film side approached me to play Arrow or play something else, or if they wanted me to become part of the John Wick franchise or something like that. So yeah.
Which are you more passionate about, comics or wrestling?
Wrestling was my first love. Before I discovered the Blue Jays, before, you know, the 12-year-old me had his heart broken by Wayne Gretzky and the LA Kings when they beat the Maple Leafs. You know, it was Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior. And you know, I did have an affection for, you know, the Christopher Reeve Superman and the Michael Keaton Batman, but it never resonated with me as superhero movies started to creep back in, to me, it was like, well, at that point, it was Stone Cold and The Rock and Triple H. So no, it's always been wrestling. I love comic book movies. I've never been a big voracious reader of actual books.
Right.
Yeah.
When you're getting ready for heels, how do you train your body for it? How do you, like, where do you go to kind of, because it looks like you're doing the same stuff that these guys are doing.
Yeah. So one of the first places that I went was your gym in LA, because, I think Zach and Justin were still there at that point. And it was, I just said to them, it's like, hey guys, I'm not trying to get in, I'm not trying to get in shape for a cover shoot of Men's Health. I'm trying to get in shape to be able to roll around a wrestling ring. And, I'm a decent size. I'm at 6'1" and 200 pounds, but like, I'm going to be in there with people that are formidable, and they're inevitably going to cast professional wrestlers on the show. So the thing that I really,
my guys did get you pretty fucking shredded though.
They did.
You look like you were doing a Men's Health shoot, no doubt.
Thank you. Appreciate that. But the thing that I never focused on prior to training for heels and prior to getting to Unbreakable was legs and trunks and hips and all that stuff. Whereas now, if I had to do away with all workouts except for one that I would keep with me to take to a deserted island, is leg day.
Leg day is recovery, right?
Legs and recovery.
Right. We recover you hard there as we train you. And that's what people kind of miss out on. But go ahead.
Yeah. Do you remember, it was one of my first times working out there. Do you remember, so what happens for the people that are uninitiated, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably know, but if you're listening because you're a fan of me, what have you, when you go to Unbreakable, you work out for 60 minutes and then you have the option of boxing and grappling and
Muay Thai.
And it'll get you at the best of times. But after a 60-minute workout, which is hard, it can really knock you down.
But and also the way we do it. Yeah. Look, there's two ways to fight. You can fight like Floyd or fight like Tyson. We're all going to fight like Tyson. We're going to throw to go. I tell our fighters all the time too, I don't really give a fuck, who wins or loses, as long as it doesn't go to the decision, right? And that's how we go. Most people can't deal with that, with someone coming throwing bombs at them nonstop. It's a relentlessness, which is the same. Yeah. I live my life relentlessly like this. I go through business like that as well. If you keep coming, most people don't sign up for that. They sign up to play a sport, and they'll eventually go, all right, I'm good. I'm done. I don't need Stephen Amell fucking throwing bomb after bomb after bomb after bomb at me. I didn't sign up for this. So yes, ours is different than everybody else's.
So it knocked me down. Not literally, but I took a knee in the gym, and you weren't working out. I think you were walking around somewhere in the back, and you just yelled, "Amell!" You came over and you excoriated me. Do you remember this?
Yeah, don't fucking, we don't show it. We don't show we're hurt. Fucking no, we don't show it, man. If I hurt you're tired, don't ever fucking let anybody see it.
So what's your logic behind that?
Okay, ready? So
yes,
our head coach emeritus is Randy Couture, right? So I learned everything I learned from Randy, a lot from Chuck. Okay?
Yeah.
And that's how Randy went all the time. Randy was just a fucking gnat. He was a violent gnat, but it doesn't stop. And he was the nicest guy in the world off the mat, out of the cage, right? But Randy would just he was a torrential downpour of violence. So Randy,
that's how he won when he won the heavyweight championship against Tim Sylvia. It was just 5 rounds of just
nonstop.
He didn't let him breathe.
And you could see Tim, and he did it to Tito Ortiz, and it's just he did it Chuck Liddell in their first fight. They're all like, get us the fuck out of here with this guy. And even Chuck admitted he quit in that fight and had no idea Randy had a torn hamstring. No clue. And that's the whole thing. Never, ever knew. Had Chuck known Randy tore his hamstring, maybe he would have given him new life. But eventually he's like, I'm going to learn to fight. I'm going to live to fight another day because this guy ain't slowing down. Well, Randy's fighting this guy, Mike Van Arsdale. Great wrestler for Dan Gable. Trained with Rashad Evans and those crew. Ended up becoming the strength coach for them for the #1 contender spot for the light heavyweight championship of the world after one of Randy's 90 retirements. What nobody knew, and Mike didn't know this until I did a story on this in Sports Illustrated. Randy had a staph infection going into that fight. Staph infection to where he could not train. and he had an IV pick in. And this was like a life and death staph infection. Back then, you're not famous like you are now. So you don't fight, you don't get paid. You don't pay your rent, you don't pay your bills. So Randy pulls the IV pick out, goes down there, and he fights. And it's the lightest he's ever been. He felt like shit still. This guy has a fucking staph infection. He goes in there and he fucking does what we talk about. He wears Mike Van Arsdale out. And Randy goes on, we train all these football players, and he tells all these guys also why you don't show it. He said, man, I walked over to the ring to our where our stool is. And normally we don't allow stool in the cage even. Like you cannot take a stool in between rounds because if you're our fighter, Steve, we want you to have no stool. And for the guy fighting you, going, fuck is wrong with Stephen Amell? Why is he not sitting in the stool? You can get between their ears, right? And then when you see them look you like you're nuts, you get off on that. You forget you're crazy. You forget you're tired and you start sharpening your weapons even more. That's what Randy's thing was. So all of a sudden, Randy says, the only time in my career I was about to die on my stool. But instead I turned around, and the moment I turned around, I saw Mike Van Arsdale plop down on his stool. And Randy stood up, winked, waved to the crowd. Fight was over. It went on for like another 30, but Van Arsdale was already out of it. Randy just kind of ran across one shot and it was done. But really, Mike Van Arsdale, if he didn't get suckered in by that, all he had to do was come out, swing away wildly, and Randy would have caved. And he never knew it. So there's a lot of ways to win a fight like that. Chael Sonnen is a guy we trained with for years. Same thing. He would just take it out. He would exhaust the shit out of you, and you'd never see him tired. So that was one of the things. Like I have no athleticism, and I'm Jewish, so I got a lot of things against me. And I'm a little 5'7" Jewish guy. And I'm like, man, if I could take some of this, Randy, and enhance it even more, right? Then we show our football players, don't put your hands on your hips. If you watch Andrew Whitworth, when he played, he would never stick his head in his huddle. He would always stick his right ear in the huddle and look at everybody else and then tell the huddle, hey, number 92 has his hands on his hips. Let's run at him.
Oh,
right?
wow.
Same reason. I didn't want you showing it. Yes. So if people ever see you're tired, they will think you're fucking crazy, and you'll forget you're tired, and then you start sharpening your weapons even more. And it's not going to happen with everybody, but if it can happen in the number one contender slot, I mean, shit, that's good enough.
Because you can quantify a guy by looking at him, right? You look across the cage, you look across the line. Because I played football a little bit in high school, and it's like, well, okay, I'm bigger than this guy, or I'm smaller than this guy, or et cetera, et cetera. But like, you can't quantify and measure crazy.
Right.
You just can't. And that's intimidating. You see a lot of endurance. I see a lot of endurance challenges. When they get down to two people, and these people are locked in, and normally the person gives up, not because they reach the point of physical exhaustion, but because they look across at the other person. They're like, I'm not mentally at this person's level.
And Randy's a fucked up individual. And I say this with love. He is the sweetest human being off the matter cage. On there, he's a different person. We had Marvel sent in Natalie Portman for us to train.
I remember.
For the Thor movie, right? And I was like, hey, good, you're going to work with Randy Couture because you're going to be doing some fight stuff. But I also wanted to be with other people who are, this guy's one of the Expendables. She didn't care. And Randy, on her very first day, puts her hands up and proceeds to punch her in the face about 74 times. I'm like, bro, she looked like a Pez dispenser. It's Natalie Portman. I'm like, bro, what the fuck are you doing? He's like, what? She has to learn how to keep her hands up. Literally. He's like, she has to learn how to keep her hands up. I'm like, no, she doesn't, dude. Like, that's like week 5. Don't worry about that. Never came back again. And last we saw from Natalie Portman. But in Randy's mind, he really thinks he's helping her.
I think, I swear to God, back in I think 2008, 2017, 2018, I was in there with my wife, and we were sparring after the workout. And you never know who the coach is going to be. And in this case, it happened to be former UFC heavyweight champion. Oh, it was Randy.
Randy, okay.
And so he gets up there, and Cass and I are sparring, and he's like, no, you gotta to actually like try to hit her, otherwise she's not gonna move. And he gets in there with me and says the same thing to her, and then he cracks me in the face 2 times, and he's like, "Look, man, it's just getting hit in the head. It's just getting hit in the head." And I turned to him and I go, "Randy, I'm in my late 30s. I have never been punched in the face before. That was the first fucking time. That hurt a lot. Like,
Congratulations.
Shit, I feel like water's coming out of my ears. Like, holy shit." So yeah, I've been punched 1 time in my life, and it was by Randy Couture.
And I want people to know they're listening at home going, "Well, I'll never go to Unbreakable." This doesn't happen normally. Randy's not there tormenting people like this. He does it to me quite a bit, or Jay Haran or Chuck Liddell. And that's the coolest thing we've had there. Were you there when Chuck and Randy locked up? Stallone was in there, like Julian Edelman and Danny Amendola, and the whole place stopped like, whoa, this is Ali and Frazier. We get to watch this. They'd never trained before. It was the first time. And Randy ran the practice, and his practices are so brutal. Chuck and I both were like, when we had like 30-second breaks, we're like texting people to call us. Yeah. So we like had to take business calls because his fucking practice was going to go on for 3 hours. And you saw we have Chris Pratt in there a lot. Pratt trained under Randy when he was 14 at a wrestling camp, or 12 at an Oregon State wrestling camp. Randy was the assistant coach at Oregon State, and he said, because the first time Chris Pratt came in there, he said, "Oh, is that Coach Couture?" I'm like, "How come you call him Coach?" He's like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe it's Coach Couture." I said, "What's going on?" He's an Avenger. What the fuck's going on? And he's like, "Man, when I was 12 or 14, I was at this Oregon State wrestling camp, and the coach said, 'Hey, one kid here, Christopher Pratt, really picked things up fast. Christopher, please do a Granby roll, fireman's carry, and something else.'" And he's like, "That coach was Randy Couture."
Wow.
How about that small, like our gym is the Kevin Bacon of gyms.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. I think, and it helps me a lot too, because first of all, Pratt looks like he could have been a pro athlete. Yeah. That dude is thick.
His calves are ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's, growing up, I did, like, one of my goals was to be an actor. I wanted to be a professional. I wanted to be a professional athlete. And it's nice going into Unbreakable when I realized that even if I had really, really tried hard, probably wouldn't have made it. Because there's just, there are some of the cats that you see
versus
there.
Matthew Judon. You and Lane Johnson, I don't know about you.
Oh, no. I just, you see it, when February or March rolls around and these guys start to heal up from the NFL season, and they start to come back into the gym. It's like, okay, that doesn't totally look like a normal human being. I couldn't do that.
But do you notice how cool they are there? And that's one of the reasons, and I want people to understand this about Unbreakable. It is a mental health facility.
That's right.
So for me, for my mental health issues, I need a community. I need a family. We have no mirrors in Unbreakable because I don't want, do you ever notice that? No mirrors in Unbreakable.
That's
I don't want anybody's back turned to the rest of the team. I need a team to kind of navigate the real world, if you will. And that's my team. And that's my safe place. And that's why everybody in there has zero ego. So it's more of a mental health space where you could be vulnerable with people. It doesn't matter who the fuck they are. Like, they're all there for the same vulnerability. Which
when I'm in Los Angeles, that's my mental health break spot. Right. That's my spot for me. I always,
and no one gives a fuck who you are in there. We just care.
Absolutely.
Steven's fucking awesome. This is our teammate. He's great. That's nice, right?
If oh my goodness. First of all, you go in there and they give you the Norm from Cheers. You walk in there and Steven, like that. And at first you feel a little weird. And then all of a sudden, within, a couple of weeks, when someone comes in there, you shout their name back. And it fosters this environment where you're encouraged to go up and introduce yourself to people, and not be intimidated by anyone. Someone like, a lot of people that are in there, they could easily walk around.
You're spotting Wiz Khalifa, Wiz is spotting you, and
oh man, so Wiz works out real hard when he gets in there, and his son and my daughter were in the same preschool class in LA, and we went to their moving on ceremony, whatever that is, in like 2017, 2018. And so Wiz is there, and he's just, he's such a lovely guy.
Yeah.
And he and I hadn't really talked that much, but then after the moving on ceremony, we didn't have childcare help, so Cass and I actually brought our daughter to the gym. Wiz is already in there. He's working with a trainer. He's like, no, his kid wasn't there, but he's in there. He's kickboxing and he's like working hard. He's shirtless. He's got a huge sweat. They were in a class. They were called Dragonflies, right? We walk in there. Wiz doesn't look at me, doesn't look at Cass, spots Maverick and goes, "I know a dragonfly when I see one," and comes over and wraps
That's
her up
awesome.
Again. Yeah, so when I'm in LA, it's important for me. I set aside a time. If I go at 10 or 12 or 8, I'm there from either 8 to 10, 10 to 12, 12 to 2, and that is my time. And I bring my little notebook, and in between sets, I'm certainly not looking in the mirror because it's not an option, but I'm writing shit down as I, because it gets my creative juices flowing. No, it is at its core a real team environment. And I don't know what you do with the staff. I'm terrible with names, but you obviously queue up everybody to make sure that they remember because it's really cool.
That. Well, you do something else too. I think it's really cool with building communities, and people when you think about how this built, but it's through wine.
So my buddy and I started Knocking Point Wine. It was back in 2013, and in 2014, it was the first time that we ever threw a party. I think our first party was in LA, but the winery is out of Walla Walla, Washington. And we threw a spring release party for the first time in 2014. And Walla Walla, for the uninitiated, is a really, really small community that now has a ton of wineries. It's unique in terms of climate and what have you in Washington State, southeastern part of Washington State. I mean, there are roads where on one side you're in Washington State and one side you're in Oregon. And, a lot of people from all over the United States, and frankly, a couple people from Europe as well, made the pilgrimage to Walla Walla. And, here we are. We just had our 10th annual release party this past weekend. And a lot of the people that were there the first time were still there the 10th time. And we were talking on our call today because we started a wine club, basically, and we would throw parties all over the United States when I was doing conventions. And I noticed it was this really subtle thing where we had this private area set up for us at the Walla Walla Suites versus Yakima, I don't know, something, AAA baseball game that they had going on there, minor league baseball game, might not have been AAA. And we had someone that came there for the weekend, and they showed up, and they had just been in a little bit of an accident. They were on crutches and stuff like that. And I just watched like 6 of our members that had become friends through Knocking Point just get up and help this person and give them a big hug and say hi. So when we had our weekly call today, we're just talking about the fact that we've built a really good community of people, and it feels like a team. When people get to Walla Walla every year, it's like they go to their favorite spots and they meet up with people, and maybe they don't see them, except for that weekend every year. And I just think that, everybody needs a squad. Everybody.
Absolutely.
Nobody can do it alone. Right. I mean, I think my kids, Maverick and Bowen, like, they don't know it. They're my squad.
Right.
Yep. I need them. Cassandra is my squad. The more time, the longer that we've been married and the longer that I've been a dad, the harder it now is to ever be away from them.
Right.
Because they're my people. And if I'm not
the blue,
yeah. I mean, I have been on a path for a couple of years now of really working toward getting sober. And that's mostly been a cut back path. And it hasn't been straightforward because, I've done a lot of reading, a lot of research about it. And, what happens with certain people is if alcohol becomes a part of your life, and it was for me for the better part of my 20s and my 30s, and then through Arrow, alcohol became something that you just did at the end of the day. At the end of a long day, you have a drink. And there was never really a bad moment along the way, but I've been doing a lot of reading, and eventually you can basically rewire your brain, and eventually it becomes something that you become dependent on. And you talk about the blue and the gray. For me, I constantly reference this thing that I learned called HALT, where if you're getting a craving, if you're doing those things, it's like, okay, are you hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? And when it comes to building a team, you eliminate the lonely one immediately. Because if I'm with my family, I'm never lonely, ever. But if I get stuck somewhere traveling and I'm hungry, I'm probably going to get a little angry, and I'm traveling, so I'm tired. If I'm lonely, I mean, that's the quad box right there. That's
if
what
you
you
look
want
at
to
it
avoid.
now, like, all right, I have this craving or something. I'm going to say halt. If any category is hit, I'm not eating it.
Mhm.
Is that what you do?
Not what?
If any of these letters are hit, I'm not eating it. If am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Am I tired? And if any of those four are the truth, are you then saying to yourself, I'm not eating it?
Yeah. If any of those four are happening, I'm immediately going, how do I fix this?
Okay.
If it's as simple as eating something, then eat and satiate yourself.
If it's just hungry, then you're hungry, right? But if it's I'm angry, lonely, or tired, you'll find something else.
I will 100% find something else, and that's when it comes down to.
Like
I think one of the first things that you do when you're trying to achieve sobriety is you build a network, right? And I've got 7-8 people that I really trust, that they know if I call them, it means that they need to pick up the phone. And I'm lucky. I don't deal with cravings. I deal with boredom.
Right.
And boredom's tough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Boredom's just like, and also too,
it's painful. Boredom is painful. Yes.
It is. And when you go through, I think the thing that I'm trying to reconstruct right now is that you go through life, and almost all of your reward moments or your moments of celebration have involved alcohol, because that's such a normal thing for a lot of people. To then take that away, it takes a while for you to not feel like you're missing something, or you're missing out on something. When in fact, being at the Super Bowl when the Rams beat the Bengals, and being sober is just infinitely better than any other.
You're not getting tired, right? You're present.
No. Yeah. You're present. That's for sure. Like I take away all the memories from that entire day, right? Like thinking back, and I think it was actually the NFC Championship game where, and I was also there. I was also at SoFi. I was also sober. And, I'm there just enjoying it. And I snapped a photo of you and Whitworth hugging on the field after the game and sent it to you. And,
we both used it.
Is that true?
Yes. We both posted it. Yes.
Hey, great. Good. And just to think of those two games, and to juxtapose them with the NFC Championship game in New Orleans in 2019 and the Super Bowl in Atlanta versus the Saints and the Pats, respectively. I went to both those games, but I stress drank the entire time. Mm-hmm. And did I have a good time? Yeah. Did the night end in disaster? No. Do I have any lasting memories?
Not really.
I don't. It's just all shapes.
Right.
There's no cool conversations with our friends George and Elisa, who we share seats with, or my buddy Frank that flew in for the game, or just really.
If you're living this sober life now, how are you doing the wine stuff?
You just do it.
But that's just more of a community now for you.
Yeah, it's more about community.
It's not so much doing the drinking for you now; it's a community.
No, and if you're doing a wine tasting with people, you can have a few sips and stuff like that. I'm not a hard line
Right.
You know, you go back to zero if you do something wrong. I think that that's a little archaic, but you know, it becomes about it just becomes about the community. Is it the most convenient thing? No, it's not.
Right.
No, it's not. To be up in Walla Walla for
Right.
a wine weekend when you're not going to have a ton to drink is not the easiest. But you know, but listen, that's life. It happens.
Last question for you. I ask all my guests this as their last question. Give me your unbreakable moment. That moment in your life that should have broken you and didn't. And as a result, you came through the other side of that tunnel stronger, that you could use that now for the rest of your life.
That's a great question.
Damn right it is. That's why I do this.
Well, I'm gonna go to December of 2008. Nope, 2009. And just getting back to Toronto and getting back to a broken relationship and to a person that didn't want to be with me anymore. And you know, with the benefit of hindsight, I realized that obviously it was for the best, but in that particular moment, my life was over. Like, it was over. I had no prospects. I had no money. I didn't think I had any friends, and that broke me. I cried on my mom's shoulder on a Saturday morning after we broke up on the Friday night, like a little fucking kid, and sobbed. You know, that cry where you can't catch your breath cry.
Yeah.
And you know, and then I went home and just kind of sat there, and I remember I remember taking all of the things in the apartment that we had bought together and just like taking them off the wall or removing them from a cabinet or whatever, and just putting them all in one spot and just sitting there. And then I called a buddy and said, "Hey man, we got to go out for a beer." Right. He's like, "Where are you?" "I'll be there in 15 minutes. And that's
calling someone saying, "Hey man, I'm struggling," before now where we're trying to make it cool to do the exact same thing.
Yeah. And you know what? And it was just that I think that people need to remember that, you know, even in that one moment where you think that everything is just shit, you pick up the phone and you just get that little spark of human connection or happiness or you know, and that, or like you order some vanilla ice cream or something like that. It sounds stupid. You just get that little spark, and you can build back up that fire.
Well, I can say this. I don't know if the girl's listening right now, but boy, did she fuck up.
No, she didn't. No, you know what? Here's the thing, though. It's very, very, very important to note. She didn't do wrong by me.
No, she just fucked up her own life. I didn't say she did wrong by you.
Oh, sure. Okay. No, I don't think so. No, she's doing great. I got nothing but love for her. I got nothing but love for her.
Well, man, I got nothing but love for you, brother. I appreciate you being my unbreakable teammate.
Thank you, Jay.
My brother in every way. Thank you so much, man. Heels 2, when does it come out?
Heels comes back for season 2, Friday night, 10 o'clock, July 28th. And if you are a Stars person, get the Stars app, catch up on season 1. I think we're gonna pull a bunch of it in front of the paywall. So if you're a wrestling fan, if you like if you like Friday Night Lights, if you like family drama, all that stuff, you don't have to like wrestling to watch it. But very proud of our second season, and it's back on July 28th, my sister's birthday.
Man, I'm proud to walk this walk with you, my brother. Appreciate it.
Thank you.